Hey guys, I'm really excited for you to hear this conversation with Lauren and I speaking to Amanda and Leila about how they were able to partner up as a real estate team in order to grow. And when Leila first got started in the business, she was by herself. She had a lot of good things going on. And when she met Amanda is when she really was able to take off. She understands the benefits of having somebody there to support her in the way she needs to be supported. And them as a team work really well together. And they talk about how they manage their relationship as a real estate team. Check out the conversation.
All right, welcome to the real estate segment of our podcast. We have Lauren Coates with me today. Usually do this with Courtney, but she's out today, so Lauren's stepping in.
And these are my ladies.
Yeah, hanging with the Slidell group
Claiming ownership of my Dell ladies.
Yeah, so we have Leila and Amanda with the Leila Perez Realty. And we're going to first just talk about you guys in general. Let's talk about how you got into real estate. And you were telling us before we got started that you've traveled a lot with your husband in the military, which is cool. And so I'm sure that kind of led to getting in some form of real estate because you've had to do it a lot in your life, right? So talk about your story about how you got into real estate.
So I got into real estate, honestly, because Leila, she was my realtor. I moved here on a leap of faith. Left my husband, not left him, but behind for a year.
I was like, wait, when did that happen?
He didn't have orders here yet. We just had some personal issues with one of my kids. We just needed to get out of Mass. And so we had been here before. It was, somewhere familiar. And I had called Leila, who had sold my house when we left here. And I said, I need to move. It's right in the middle of COVID. It was wild and crazy. We did it in 3 weeks.
Nice.
From beginning to end.
Right, Leila?
Yes.
You made it look so easy that she wanted to get into real estate.
That's right.
It was just a little bit stressful.
It was a lot stressful.
But it was a lot of emotions too. It was such a big move. There were so many things going on. And it was, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like there was some comfort in still being like, okay, I know her. I know she understands. Yeah. So it facilitated a lot, even though it was kind of like, hey, pick a house.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
pick a house. We got to do this.
So then Leila was looking for an assistant, and I was just me. Kids were at school. Husband was underway. And so I started working for her, doing all the admin work behind the scenes, a little bit of TC work, and was reading the contracts and understanding the entire process from beginning to end as a professional, perspective. And then she actually was like, get licensed. And I was like, I don't have the desire to get licensed. That's not what I want to do. So I did. I got licensed, and actually I didn't start selling right away. It was in the holding company for a little while until I decided, all right, like, let me just do it. Let me just take the dive and go in.
Nice.
And so that's kind of just how it happened. And fast forward, here we are.
But how valuable was it that you actually got to experience the backside of the real estate transactions before you started actually being a real estate agent?
So it absolutely helped me pass that test.
Yeah.
I did all of my training online at home. And went and took my test, passed everything first time, but I had the experience of understanding the contracts, the timelines, the laws and legalities and everything behind the scenes because I had worked for Leila, before getting licensed. That absolutely has helped me propel my business.
Yeah. I mean, most real estate agents jump in and start selling.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are geared towards selling. They don't like the back end paperwork side of it, but I have a similar story. When I first got into the title business, I worked for a title company as a lawyer, but my job was to do everything except be and do the legal work. And so I got to do all the back end side of the business and understand how all of those things work. So now when somebody has a question, I can troubleshoot things to solve problems. But also when I'm talking with our clients, I know what goes on behind the scenes to be able to direct them and help them understand the process a little bit more.
Absolutely.
So it's huge. I think it's hugely valuable. I mean, a lot of real estate agents don't have that experience. So I think that's great.
It fits her personality, too, because she's forgetting to tell everybody that she's a teacher as
am a
well.
teacher.
And so, I just can see her with her clients all the time, that's what they love, is she's literally walking them through the process. So she wasn't kidding when she's like, I'm combing through these documents. That's how she handles everything. How can I learn? Go take a test on it. You're a professional test taker. You knew you were going to pass that exam, right? And then coaching your clients.
Yeah. Education is key. I firmly believe that education is key.
Yeah.
So
obviously you start off as a solo agent. Now you have a team, you have somebody on your team and you're coaching people up. So tell us about your story about you getting into real estate.
So I didn't really get into real estate understanding what real estate was and what it was to be an agent. And I think that was probably the best thing for me.
I think that's so normal and people are not willing to admit it. So thank you for that.
Well, because, okay, so I guess in the last few years with all like TikTok and, well, like all the Netflix series and stuff like that too, and they're like showing like, oh, well, you can make all this money, and it's so glamorous.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, my heels get beat up. I'm like in the mud. Like, it is not that cool. But I went into it from like, I really enjoy reading. I enjoy like I like business. I like that side of it. I think it's really interesting. And I was doing a lot of reading on investing and things like that. And then I just happened to, you know, I'm a social person. I'll talk to anybody. And then I ended up talking to someone at the gym, and she's like, by the way, you should talk to my friend. She's a broker. And I was like, I don't know what a broker is, but I was like, yeah, I'll talk to your friend. Sure. Why not? I was like, I'll talk to anybody. And then it was very much like, oh, go take this test and sell houses. And I was like, okay. Like, I was so ignorant about it that I got pregnant while I was like about to like take my test. And I called my to-be broker, and I was like, I'm so sorry. Are you going to like not take me? And she's like, what? I'm thinking I'm like a regular employee. And she's like, no, it's great. Go have a baby.
Right. Do your thing.
But then I was like, oh, okay. And then I realized like, oh, okay, I am responsible for everything. I am like on my own. And so I think that was the best thing for me, because I was like, I have nothing to lose. I have everything to gain. You know, so it was so like accidental. I mean, I had already done sales and things like that. So to me, that made sense. I was like, oh, I could do sales if I believe in the product. Yes, I can sell things. But I didn't get into it with that like crazy mindset of like, you know, glamour or anything like that. I was like, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So
you saw opportunity.
Yeah, and as you grow, like as you've kind of grown as an agent, you started off as a solo agent, and now you have somebody on your team. So how have you built your team around the learning and experience, and how have you decided to partner with Amanda?
So I didn't start the team. So I went through like a whole process. So I started out solo, and then I realized like something's missing. I had a business coach, because I was like, there are things that are missing here, and I need someone else. Like, I need a different perspective. And what a lot of realtors don't realize is it's a really lonely business. And I've always said it, like, and it's, if you don't understand that, like, there are other people like you that you should talk to, and you get into that, like, oh, it's either me or it's you, it's very competitive, it's really ugly, like, you become very isolated. So to then go, hey, if we all win, we all get to level up. Like, changing that mindset was big for me. But then when I got pregnant with my second child, I was like, okay, I have a good thing going, but I can't do it alone. So then I hired my first buyer's agent. And then right after, we were like, okay, we're going to need help, because I'm very big on like, I want a very nice polished product. I want things to look like they're supposed to flow. As much as I wing it, I still like things to look right and be right.
Jared, you know something about that, right? Standards, winging standards.
Yeah.
It's a perfect.
It's like a balance.
Look,
you know,
you
can't have it all together, but you have to have an ideal goal that you're going towards. So
vision and action.
And then I was like, all right, I need someone. I knew Amanda. I trusted Amanda. And then once I started seeing her working, and I was like, this is interesting. So my TC at the time was getting out of the business, and she was moving and all this. And I was like, ooh, this is really hard, because I had made having a transaction coordinator part of my business and how I kept things flowing, how I managed my family life, like everything. So I was like, hey, I'm going to kind of teach you what my old TC was doing. And she's like, okay. She had a little learning curve, but she picked it up quick. So I was like, and then I started seeing her doing everything. She was listening to everything. We were talking a lot, because we were always in the same office. And I was like, why don't you get licensed? She's like, whatever you want. Like, she was so like whatever about it. I'm like, no. Like, I think you would actually be really good at this. Just because you're a genuine person, you actually care, and you have the knowledge and the experience. Like, Amanda had bought and sold houses, you know, personally too. So it wasn't like she didn't know what she was talking about. I'm like, you can relate to people, and that's the biggest thing. If you can relate, like, it's such a stressful process that if you can actually like relate and have some empathy, that's all people want.
Sure. So speaking of that,
heard.
and
Exactly.
what talking about what the people want, and from your standpoint, you like the polished product that you offer your client. So what does that mean to you? What does the product look like for a client on y'all's team when y'all are dealing with somebody? What is this client going to get from you guys as a realtor team?
So one of the things that I went really heavy on when I started the team, I was like, I have to treat it as none of the agents that I'm taking on know what they're doing. So if we start from here and we just like work our way up and start. So I was one of probably the few agents that I knew of that was actually having consultations with my clients. And I had put together, like a whole folder for them. And I was like, this is what we're going to talk about. We would take an hour, hour and a half, and we would walk through it because all I have is my experience. So I was like, I was 20 years old when I bought my first house. I didn't know what I was doing. I hated it. I was like, it's not that I need to be in control of everything, but it's a huge purchase. So I was like, I would have liked someone to talk to me and explain it to me like I'm 6. Yeah. So I was like, that's kind of what I did. And I was like, hey, if you don't know, I don't care. Yeah. I would rather we start there. So we started training that way. And then just making sure that they understood that there was a plan. There's a plan for buying and selling. It's not just, oh, I'm going to pop a sign in the yard and let's hope it sells. Like we have what's called a sold strategy when we sit with our sellers. And why is it called that? Why do we actually have it? Well, we actually have a guideline to what we're supposed to be doing. And so the seller then feels like, okay, they care, they're following through, and they can actually measure everything that's being done. Yeah. This is exactly what she said was going to happen. This is exactly that timeline. Yeah. So it gives them confidence, especially when things aren't going the way they would like it to.
Sure. I had that conversation with somebody this morning. Her ideal client is somebody who's a working person, working family. And if they're working and they have other priorities and they're taking care of their family and then they're also trying to get together everything to move, having a clear expectation is key. And like showing them what are the steps you're going to go through to walk through this process. And if you can instill that confidence at that first consultation with somebody, it sets the bar and they know what they're going to get and they can they don't worry as much. They're not following up as much because you can always revert back to the first consultation. Follow the checklist and we're going to go through there and we're here. We're moving on to the next step. So I think that's a big deal for your clients. And clear expectations is something that we talk about a lot. Amen. In order for you to have your client to have an experience, they have to have clear expectations on the front end.
And how many times do you buy a house?
Yeah.
Right. So it's not something that they're doing every single day. So we want to create a roadmap for them to follow and be confident about their purchase.
Yeah, that's great. How long did it take you to build out that process?
I mean, like I said, I had hired a
still changing.
Still it is always evolving.
Yeah,
for sure.
It absolutely should be.
Initially, though, I mean, it didn't take me long because it just goes off of your experience. Like, okay, what has the process been like, and then just putting it on paper. But then also, I mean, I'm big on like role playing and like, how does this make sense when I explain it to you? Because it's one thing like you can read something and like, yeah, that's fine, but can I actually explain it? So Amanda knows. I am notorious for having like little things that I always say, like when I talk about like the final walkthrough. So I always tell people, and I always use this line because it helps kind of,
pink walls. Hot pink walls.
Hot pink walls. If the walls were this color when we first saw the house, but they're hot pink the day before closing, we have a problem. That's why we do a final walkthrough. And so it sounds silly, but you're always going to remember the pink wall. Yeah. I talk about during the inspection period, I always say, hey, if we pull up to your home inspection, and your next door neighbor is outside naked on the street in the middle of the day, do you think you want to live there? And we get some funny responses, but most of the time, people are like, oh no, I don't want to live next to someone problematic. Well, how do you know? That's why the inspection period is important. That's why we have that opportunity to back out, because you get to learn not just about the house, but the neighborhood. And so it kind of helps
and
drive
the naked
that
neighbor.
Point.
That's why you start putting hashtag naked neighbor on every post that you have.
And no one forgets it. So
is that problematic? I didn't think so.
Well,
you know what a lot of ladies say.
I don't know what y'all do in Slidell.
They do. Well, a lot of the ladies say, well, it depends. How does he look? And excuse you? Excuse me, ma'am? Excuse me, we're in a professional setting. But yeah, for real.
Well, that's great. A lot of agents that we talk to, we're advising them on creating a process like that because it sets the bar.